Welcome to Sinister Tales, where we will share horror and mystery stories just for you. We hope you enjoy your stay here.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Sinister Tales. I'm Nox, and tonight I have plenty of horror and mystery stories just for you. Now, how is everyone for tonight? Hmm? Good? No? Well, I hope everyone had a good day today, and if you didn't, I sincerely hope and pray that better days will come for you. Really, I do. I hope everyone had somewhat of a fruitful day. After working hard, I'm sure all of you want to wind down and relax. What better way than to have a good spine chilling story before you end off for the night? Alright, I shall not tarry on any further. I'm sure all of you want me to get straight into it. Now, do you? Well, let's dive into our first story for the night. Sinister Tales. Okay, this one is from Sam. It reads, I went on a graduation trip organized by my friends after graduating from tertiary education in 2016. It was our last time for a good get-together before we all separate and lead our individual lives. You know how it goes, right? When we are older, we will lose contact with a few of our friends. We will always say, hey, we should meet up. Long time no see. How are you? Let's meet on this date and this date. We plan and we plan and we plan, but it never happens. Yep, that is very true. Anyway, we went on to Hong Kong for our grad trip, and when we arrived there, it was nighttime, and we decided to check in to a hotel to rest up for the night. The others were feeling hungry, and so was I. So some of my friends volunteered to go out and get a takeaway from the nearby food center. The others will carry their luggage to their room. The ones that volunteered have already begun taking orders. Some people couldn't make up their mind and were being extremely choosy, so the process was taking excruciatingly long. I was tired and hungry. Since I've already given my order, I announced that I would proceed up to my room first. The others acknowledged and continued to choose their order. I trudged my way to the elevator and onto the floor that I was staying. As I arrived at the front door of my room, I tapped the access card on the card panel and the door unlocked itself. Once inside, I placed the card onto the card slot, which activated the electricity to the room. The lights and air conditioner turned on. I placed my bags and shoes neatly and lay down on the soft mattress. There were 2 beds in the room, and they were side by side, so I took the one that was closer to the window since it had a nice view. As I lay down, I felt my fatigue go away with every minute I lay there. As time passed, I couldn't help but feel like something was off. The room was silent, which was normal since I was the only occupant, but it was eerily quiet. I thought I was imagining it, but I felt like as if someone was there in the room with me as well. The presence felt close, like right beside my bed, looming over me. To shake off the feeling, I took out my phone and fiddled with it until my eyelids grew heavy. The next thing I knew, I woke up not knowing how much time had passed. I didn't even knew I blacked out. I looked around the room but didn't see my friend Kevin anywhere. Then I looked at the foot of my bed. I saw a lady with her back facing against me, sitting on the floor. I had a lot of questions as to why she was there, but I thought perhaps it was just one of my female friends that entered the room with my friend. I called out to her. Sarah? Sarah, is that you? No response. So I thought, oh, I might have the wrong person. I called out another of my female friends' name. Kate? Kate, is that you? But there was no response. The lady then began to sway her body left and right and left and right. I called out both of their names, hoping to get any response. Any response. But what I got was something I didn't expect. She began to hum. Her swaying of her body was very rhythmic with her humming. I felt the fear within me inching to grip my wick wheeled hard. My hair stood on end, and I realized this was not any of my female friends. I quickly pulled the blanket over my head and shivered with fright. I closed my eyes, and as I lay there defenseless, I could feel the presence shifted from the foot of my bed, slowly making its way to the side of my bed. I was terrified at what was gonna happen. The lady then said, "Have you figured out who I am?" I then felt a tug on my blanket, and each time she tugged, I held onto the blanket tighter. She laughed. The creepiest laugh I've ever heard. It was so loud that I wanted to cover my ears, but I couldn't for fear that if I did, she'd remove my blanket completely, and then I'd be able to see the horror before me. She laughed, and it was then I couldn't contain my fear, and I screamed for help. Moments later, I heard the door burst open. My friend rushed in. He tapped my shoulder. Hey, are you okay? Oi, it's me. Hey. I was still screaming, and when my friend pulled the blanket away, I screamed even louder because I was still traumatized by the event. I opened a fraction of my eye to make sure it was indeed my friend and not the lady that was tricking me. Indeed, it was him, and I fully opened my eyes. He calmed me down, but I proceeded to scold him for taking too long to come up. He was stunned, but apologized to me anyway. Apparently, I was out for 30 minutes. He was busily settling the orders and carrying the luggage up to their room. He was about to enter my room when he heard me screaming for help. That's when he burst in. I was about to tell him what I experienced when he asked, "Do you knock the door before you enter the room?" I shook my head. He gave me the "oh" face and explained that in Hong Kong, they believe that if you want to enter a room that has no occupant for a long period of time, you were supposed to knock before entering. This was a way to tell the spirits that you're coming in to stay for a few days. They'd either leave the room to you or share with you. He also told me that the room beside us is empty, and it was intentional to leave them empty. It was to house the spirits that have left the room that we entered, provided we knock. He went on to reveal that I also should not have placed the shoes neatly, as this would encourage the spirits to wear my shoes and move around. It was best to place them haphazardly. As he went on and on about the superstitions, I could feel my life shortened with every point he makes, because almost all the do's and don'ts that he listed, I've broken most of them. The next few nights that we spent in that hotel room, whenever my friend was not in, I would not stay in that room. I'd leave and visit my other friends in their room. If not, I would hang around at the receptionist area, sitting on the couch, using the Wi-Fi. Okay, for the superstition part, that's true. Because when I was in Hong Kong, same thing. The tour guide, a very nice lady by the way, She told me that when we want to enter a room, we were supposed to knock. This is to announce the spirits that you're entering and gonna stay there. Because supposedly that's their room to begin with before you barge in. So it's a sign to show respect. And then the empty room as well, same thing, is to house the spirit that have left the room that you entered. And it's also serves like a sort of guest house for the spirit. If I'm not wrong, buildings in Hong Kong don't have a fourth floor. Maybe they do have a fourth floor, but they will never call it the fourth floor because the number four sounds like the word death in the language. So it's a bad sign. If I'm not wrong, they replaced it with something entirely different. So instead of number four, I think they either skip it or they replaced it with something else. Let's say 3A or 5A, something like that. You know, I forget already. It's either they replace or they skip. It's one of these. Yeah, it's been a while since I've been to Hong Kong, so I may or may not be right on my information, but I remember something along those lines. So yeah, if anyone can shed some light, please do. Please comment. All right, moving on to the next story. The title for this story is "Strange Encounter at a Bus Stop Late at Night." This one is from Zizi, and she was making her way back from her part-time job. She was on her way to the bus stop, which was located far away from her workplace, when she encountered something strange. Come, let's listen to a tale.
Sinister Tales.
So, Zizi says that she used to work at a warehouse in Penjuru Lane. This happened back in 2013. I finished my O levels and had about 1 to 2 months of waiting time before my results came in, and another 2 to 3 months before the registration for my tertiary education. So I did what most of my peers would do to fill up my time: find a part-time job. I wanted some financial independence so I can spend on whatever I want with my hard-earned money. Seeing my friends successfully being productive with their time made me envious, so I wanted in on it as well. I eventually found a job at a warehouse in Penjuru Lane. My job was simply to sort out boxes and packages based on the country that the firm wants to export or deliver on a pallet. To get straight to the point, one day I was doing my work as per normal when my manager needed people to work overtime. I volunteered because I thought, hey, I could get more money with this. So I stayed back to work from 6 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. After I fulfilled the overtime hours that was scheduled to me, I was dismissed and left the warehouse. The warehouse was located far from the bus stop. It was about 1.2 kilometers away. Surrounding the warehouse were other factories and warehouses. There were also large trees near the factories as well. And past the factories and warehouse, you will come under a bridge, which you have to walk under it to get to the bus stop. When I agreed to volunteer to work overtime, I hadn't thought on how scary it would be once I left the factory. It was quiet, eerie and dark. The lamppost that emitted yellow light didn't help to brighten the place at all. It only serves to make the place even creepier than before. I tried to shake off these thoughts and hastened my pace to the bus stop. As I was walking, I heard footsteps from behind me. The first thing that came to my mind was potential robbers or someone who wanted to have their way with me. So I turned my head to my right a little, and using my peripheral vision of my right eye, I was able to see who was following me from behind. And what did you think I saw that night? Nothing. There was no one behind me. Thinking that perhaps it was on my left, since my peripheral vision was limited, I stopped and turned behind. The strange thing was the footsteps suddenly stopped when I turned behind. I suddenly got the chills. Was there someone in the forest? It had to be. There was no other explanation. So I did what any rational person would do, and that was to run straight to the bus stop, where there's light and hopefully people who can help me out. I was running for my dear life, and I could hear there was someone also running behind me as well. I'm gonna be honest, I have never excelled in NAFA, and I genuinely regret not exercising often. I was still ways away from the bus stop, but I was already tired. Even though I was tired, I kept running as my life depended on it. When the bus stop came into view, I could see that there was no one there. My heart sank as now I am alone and have to fend off this potential criminal on my own. The good thing is that the bus stop had few trees around it. In front of it was the road and behind it was a huge plot of land with very little trees. Basically a very large field with clear view, so whoever was chasing me couldn't hide anymore. That means though, I'd have to come face to face with them. Upon reaching the bus stop, I turned around, arms at the ready to defend myself. The footsteps suddenly stopped as well. And guess what? No one was behind me. I was feeling breathless. My senses are heightened and my heart rate was off the charts. I looked left, right, and around me before going back to my original view. Nothing. I was still tense, but moments passed and I began to drop my guard. There really wasn't anyone. I chose not to sit down though. In any moment, if the perpetrator decided to appear, I'll make a run for it. I was pacing up and down the bus stop when I heard a loud thud from above. My entire body shook when it happened. It felt like as if I was shocked with electricity. My heart started to beat fast again. Was the reason there wasn't anyone behind me was because they quickly climbed up to the roof of the bus stop? I was under the bus stop shelter and from inside, I took quick glances from all around the perimeter of the bus stop. I was preparing myself to when the perpetrator decides to jump down from the roof, I'll make a run for it, and for sure this time. Just then, I saw the bus from a distance, and I flagged it down frantically. The bus slowed down before coming to a halt, and I boarded the bus. The bus captain saw me and smiled at me. I must have looked terrible with my sweat and my hair a mess. The bus captain said, "Girl you overtime is it?" I looked to the bus captain and nodded. He closed the bus door and we moved on to our destination. As I was about to make my way inside the bus, he continued, "Next time, if possible, try to have your own transport. Or you call a taxi to come pick you up, okay? Over here, this place very eerie, very quiet. Got a lot of things going on here." I just nodded my head. I thought that was the end of it, but he had more to say. Just now, I saw something dirty. Hey, you very lucky, no? I was just around the corner. If I had been any later, who knows what might happen to you? I was puzzled and asked, what do you mean by dirty? You saw a guy that was targeting me, is it?" He shook his head. "No, not guy. Ayah, I also don't want to say lah. Later, you go home, you scared, no?" I was still curious as to what he saw. I tried to probe him for more info, but he wouldn't tell. So I gave up and sat the seat nearest to the bus captain. I actually knew what he was referring to when he said he saw something dirty. But I just wanted to confirm whether it was true. Even though he didn't explicitly say ghost, but him not wanting to tell me and not wanting to scare me was enough confirmation that it was indeed a ghost. I just didn't know where he saw it. But if I had to guess, he must have saw it on the roof. Can you imagine if you were in Zizi's position, going through what she experienced? In the beginning, she didn't thought that it might be a ghost that was chasing her, and that's actually pretty normal. Because you'd think that someone or some random guy who's trying to rob you or trying to have their way with you, but then when she bought the bus, the bus captain then confirmed her alternative theory that perhaps it was actually a spirit that was trying to scare her. Okay, over here she provide a picture to the bus stop. Okay, just one picture that she took. Okay, here it is. See, this is the bus stop, and there are some trees nearby, very little trees, and otherwise it's actually you have a pretty clear view. whilst she didn't provide me with the company that she worked for, but judging from the map that I saw earlier today, the nearest warehouse to this bus stop is about 900 meters. And the furthest, I think, if I'm not wrong, is about 1.2, 1.3, 1.4 kilometers away. So, yeah, imagine if Zizi wants to investigate, or perhaps she has this inquisitive nature within her to find out what was causing the loud thud on the rooftop. Imagine if she just back up slowly, walk slowly behind, just keep on walking, backing up slowly, and then she observed on the rooftop what was making that loud noise, what was causing the loud thud. Oh, I tell you, if she did that, I think the ghost might respond back with their eyes wide, smiling, and say, "You want to see me?" All right. In the story, I forget. She did mention something about NAFA. For those who are unaware, NAFA basically means National Physical Fitness Assessment or Award. It's basically to assess one's physical fitness. So we had this NAFA normally in primary school and secondary school. We were made to do various stations: sit and reach, standing broad jump, shuttle run, pull up or chin up, depending on your age. And I forget what's the last station. Oh yeah, I forget what's the last one. There are a total of 5 stations, and to add on to that 5 station, you also have to run 1.2 kilometers for primary school and 2.4 kilometers for secondary school. Of course, you have a certain timing to beat as well. If you go beyond a certain timing, you basically fail 2.4. You fail 2.4, you fail 1.2 kilometers, you basically fail every single thing. Yeah, so running was a killer. So you are encouraged to score. No, you're not. No, back then. Oh, back then was different. Back then, you must pass all the station, including 2.4, in order to get a pass. If not, you fail 2.4, you fail everything. In fact, I think you fail one station, you fail everything. Yeah. So, of course, failure would constitute you to redo a certain number of times within a certain period. So, teachers would normally push for students to pass. And if they can't within a stipulated amount of period, then, well, what can you do? You fail. So, there's nothing you can do about that. Why do we have this system? That's a very good question. Okay, if I have to answer this, I think it's just to help us to keep fit, and it's for the teachers to gauge our fitness level, and perhaps it's supposed to tailor, a specific program for those who are unfit. Honestly, I don't really question that much. I just know that I just need to get this over and done with. I just do the 5 station, do my 2.4, that's it. I'm out. I'm not gonna ask any more questions. Yeah, that's NAFA basically. Yeah. So when Zizi mentioned she didn't do well for NAFA, basically she failed. In any case, I'm glad, okay, that she stayed under the shelter and didn't, back away and trying to look what is on the rooftop. And I'm also very glad that the bus came on time as well. Any later, and God knows what might happen to her, right? So yeah. Okay, I'm gonna read the next story. This one is from Imran. It reads, I was jogging around my neighborhood estate one night when from a distance I saw a lady also jogging in front of me. Come, let's listen to Imran's tale. I lived in Choa Chu Kang, and back then I was undergoing national service. In order to keep fit and pass my IPPT, I would train almost every day. I'd often jog and go to the gym whenever I have free time. Whenever I jog, I prefer to do it outside rather than using the treadmill. I get to see new sights, and it helps me from being bored. I only use the treadmill if the weather was absolutely terrible for jogging. That day, I recall I was busy throughout and didn't get to exercise at all. Feeling guilty for not exercising, I decided that I should go for a jog at night. With the soft windy breeze and cold night air, it was perfect for a good jog. I decided to run around my neighborhood estate since it was late. So I was running around my neighborhood and was about 2 laps in when I spotted another jogger in front of me, about 300 to 400 meters ahead of me. I was feeling happy and proud for them since there are others who are trying to keep fit too. I often love to overtake others when I see a person right in front of me. It keeps me motivated to stay ahead of them, and it gives me a challenge later on to not let them overtake me. So I sped up my pace, and as I got closer to the lady, I noticed something weird. Normally, when a lady jogs, they'd often tie their hair into a bun or ponytail so that their hair doesn't obstruct their view. They'd also wear a sports attire. However, this lady was different. She had her hair down and was wearing a long white dress. Her white dress wasn't exactly white as well. It was covered with some sort of dirt near the bottom ends of her dress. I was about 100 to 150 meters when I noticed this. So I was thinking, what on earth is this jogger doing? Her hair is down, she's wearing a dress. It doesn't make sense. Why? Who would do such a thing? So my mind was racing and I couldn't figure out why she was doing what she was doing. But then something triggered inside of me. You know the meme where the lady is making careful calculations? Yes, my mind was doing that, and suddenly it struck me. Eh, this one's not human. This one a ghost lah. So I created some distance between the both of us, and I was about 300 meters away from her. I then did a big brain move and decided to continue running as per normal. I didn't want to panic and show the ghost that I was afraid. Basically, I was trying to fool the ghost into thinking that I haven't noticed who she was. At a certain junction, when I turned right, I'd go into an estate block with a 7-Eleven under it. My plan was to turn right at that junction and run straight into the convenience store. When the junction arrived, I straight away deviated from the jogging route and sprinted straight to the 7-Eleven. At that moment, my heart rate was beating even faster than usual. My body felt light and I was afraid. I was afraid that my plans would be foiled due to my carelessness. If I fell down right now, I'm sure that's the end of me. I was sprinting and sprinting when I heard footsteps matching my pace. At that instant, my adrenaline kicked in. I knew it was no jogger, but I didn't want to turn my head to look. I kept sprinting, ignoring the urge to look behind. When I was close to the 7-Eleven, I burst open the door and the cashier manning the counter was surprised. She was surprised to see me forcefully open the door. I was breathless and I looked to her. She was still shocked and I said, okay, relax, relax. I just My mind was racing, trying to find an excuse. And then I found the perfect excuse. I just got cockroach. I was running. She nodded and giggled after that. She must have found that a big guy like me was afraid of a small little bug. Now that I was safe inside the convenience store, I was thinking on how to go back home. It was nearby, true. But what if the ghost was waiting for me somewhere? What if as I'm taking the lift home, the lift will stop at a random floor, and when the door opens, she's there, standing, looking at me. And then I'd have no way out. Or what if I'm walking and then she'd be behind me? Or what if I experience none of that, but she follows into my home, and then I'd have to deal with her as she disturbs me and my family. All these thoughts came into my mind, and then the cashier asked, is the cockroach still outside? You know, if you need help, I can get rid of it. Oh, no, don't need. So we decided to converse for a while. I was only chatting up to her because I want to get rid of this fear that's still within me. It was in the middle of our conversation that my dad texted me of my whereabouts, and I told him of where I was and what happened. My father, being a very understanding and extremely gracious person, decided to come down and pick me up. So the cashier and I was having a blast talking when my dad knocked on the glass door. I smiled at the cashier and turned to leave when she called me back. I spun around and saw her give me a very creepy smile. Everything about her seems off. Even though we have just met, I knew that the smile she's giving now versus the smile she gave earlier was like night and day. And when she spoke, I also noticed something was different too. It was as if something else was residing in her body. She said,
I'll catch you next time.
"Whoa." I'm not sure what happened, but I think perhaps the ghost possessed her right again. But, okay, say the thing didn't possess her, right? After he leaves the store, would the ghost have moved on because he has waited for too long? Or would it be around the vicinity? And if it's around the vicinity, because I don't think it would disturb Imran and his father, would the ghost then change target? Perhaps disturb someone who is alone? Would it disturb the cashier inside the store? Because, okay, the story didn't say that she was the only one that's taking care of the store, but it could be inferred that she was the only one there because Imran was there in the store for some time, chatting to her, and during this entire time, the dad texted Imran on his whereabouts. So we can infer that quite some time have passed, and yet he didn't mention like, oh, there's another cashier somewhere at the back or another cashier filling up some stocks or inventory. Nothing. So we can infer that she's alone. So would the ghost then disturb her, who's alone? If let's say she, if let's say the ghost didn't possess her, of course, but since she got possessed, well, different story. I like to comment that Imran's dad is top tier. Most parents, if the kids say something that doesn't make sense, their story doesn't add up, or if they need to be picked up by their parents, even though they're an adult, they would get a scolding. Say, you see, who asked you to go out late at night? Who? No one told you to go out late at night, but you decided to go out late at night. Now you face the consequences. I let the ghost chase you. But Imran's dad did none of those. Instead, he was very understanding. He was like, you know what? I understand. I'm not going to question your story. And he just picks up Imran like it was nothing. And together they leave. They went back home. I think they went back home with very little issue, except for the last part. That was something else. Yeah. So yeah, it's very nice for his father to be very understanding. So treasure your parents if they are selfless, kind, and understanding. And if for some reason you don't have the luxury of experiencing these qualities from your parents due to whatever circumstances, then please strive to be one for your future children or to others. You know, the world is chaotic as it is right now. A little bit of kindness wouldn't hurt. It goes a long way. All right. Well, the next story, okay. He requests not to be named, okay, but he says to call his nickname Chonky. So, I was riding my bike home one night after my afternoon shift when it broke down near a cemetery. All right, let's listen to Chonky's tale.
Sinister Tales.
I was in national service at the time and I had just completed my afternoon shift. It was already evening and I could go home at 10 p.m. onwards. However, I stayed behind to chat to the provost that was on duty for the night, and if I recall, I stayed behind about an hour or so. By the time I left Civil Defense Academy, it was about 11 to 11:30 p.m. That night, I had two options to get home. The first option was to take the road that was nearest to the cemetery. So basically, I'll be passing by the cemetery. The second option was for me to take the slightly longer route that was nowhere near the cemetery. I didn't know exactly what I was thinking that night, but I chose the road to pass by the cemetery. As I passed by the cemetery, I noticed my bike was getting slower and slower. My bike getting slower? What's wrong? So I tried to speed up my bike, go into full gear, but for some reason, my bike was still going slower. In fact, it was going slower than before. So I was puzzled as to what was going on. I took a look at my bike. Oh man, don't tell me I must stop. What time already? I need to get back home. My bike got slower and slower until it came to a halt. Surprised at what may have caused this, I stepped down to inspect my bike. I took a look at the internals and found nothing wrong, and decided to start my bike, but it couldn't start. I was bummed and did various things to troubleshoot my bike. I didn't realize this at first, but on that particular road, I was the only one there that night. Not a single vehicle passed by me since my bike broke down. I was too busy trying to get my bike to start to notice this. I was there for about 10 to 15 minutes when I saw a car over at the distance. I looked up and I can see the car slowed down and the driver was inside looking at my direction. He gave me this funny look of disbelief, and I was wondering why he gave me the face to begin with. Suddenly, I saw the driver who was looking at my direction suddenly change his focus to look straight ahead, and he sped his vehicle. I didn't think too much at first on why he suddenly looked in front and sped off, but I was thinking perhaps he has places to go and it's late at night. Again, I was there for another 5 to 10 minutes trying to fix my bike. In all that time, I swore I did not even think about the fact that I was near a cemetery. All I was thinking was that I needed to fix my bike and that I need to get home so that I can wake up and go to work tomorrow. So I tried to inspect my bike once more to see what was wrong, but I couldn't tell what was wrong. It all seemed fine. So about 5 to 10 minutes have passed and another car came. The driver stopped his vehicle beside my bike and wind down his window. He spoke to me in Malay. "Dek, buat apa tu?" So I'll translate. "Son, what are you doing?" My bike broke down and I'm trying to start. So far no luck." Okay. How about this? You take your belongings and keys, leave your bike here. Tomorrow, get a tow truck to get your bike. Come, it's late already. I'll bring you home. Thinking that I wouldn't get another opportunity like this, I agreed and did as I was told. Once I got in, the car didn't immediately sped away to our destination. Instead, the driver drove slowly and said, "You want to know why I wanted to help you?" Why? Okay. It's best if I show you. Okay, look at my side mirror. I took a look at this right side mirror and I can see my bike in the reflection. It would have been fine if it was just my bike, but I saw something else. Something that was not meant for human eyes. I saw a lady in a white dress, her hair so long it touched the road. My eyes widened and I looked away. The driver who witnessed my reaction began to sped away, and once we're far away, he said, "Now you know why I wanted to help you." That means the first vehicle that passed by Chonky actually saw the lady that was sitting at a pillion seat, which was why he gave a weird look over at Chonky's direction. Ah, okay. So Chonky spent close to about 20 to 25 minutes trying to fix his bike. And all this while he didn't thought that perhaps something else was going on. Be honest, he was very, very brave. If it was me, I think I would peed my pants because, you know, you are somewhere quiet, you are near a cemetery, the timing for your bike to break down at that particular spot was impeccable. It was too much of a coincidence. But yeah, kudos to the kind gentleman that gave him a lift home. I remember when I was young, I often see and hear stories of strangers who would often stop by the side of the road and help those whose vehicle was broken down. So I just want to know if this practice, I mean, I'm pretty sure there are some people who still practice this, but I just want to know, is it still being widely practiced by a large group of people, or has the number of people who help strangers with broken down vehicles has dwindled over the past few years? I'm asking because nowadays I don't really see or hear them that often. So it's either no longer talk worthy, people either got bored of telling the same old stories again, or perhaps time has changed and people are more cautious of strangers, which lead to, the dwindling numbers, or perhaps there are some other factors that I'm not seeing. But yeah, back then I agree that times were simpler, to some extent. And yeah, nowadays, well, anyway, I could probably share with you one more story before we end off for the night. Okay. Now, this email comes from Michael. It reads, I was in primary 4 and was in the basketball club for my co curricular activity, or CCA. That afternoon, we stayed back since we had basketball practice at 3 p.m. 10 minutes passed, and a few of the other boys started to slowly stream into the court. We all placed down our bags near the bench and sat down chatting whilst we waited. 20 minutes passed, and only a handful of us were there. If I recall, it was about 9 of us on that day. We had probably 20 members that were supposed to attend the training. However, neither the coach nor teacher in charge was present. We then came to the conclusion that training was cancelled, but had no idea when that was announced. So basically, we stayed back for nothing. And to make things worse, the sky was getting dark and the wind was howling. It then began to pour. We now had no choice but to stay in school until the weather clears up. We moved our belongings to a dry area since our basketball court was not indoors. One of the guys had a brilliant idea to explore the school in search of ghosts since the weather, lighting, and timing was perfect. It was stupid and foolish, I tell you. But what the hell? All of us were sold with the idea and we went with it. And this is how the tale begins. Guys, so all of us are in agreement, we're gonna search for a ghost, right? Okay, good. Here's the plan. My parents got tell me before that if we are ever going to a spooky place or somewhere that is eerie, it's best to go in even numbers. If we go in a group of odd numbers, there's a high chance that a ghost will appear near us and then he will try to disturb us. So, I'm going to be part of the first group. Who wants to follow me? 5 other guys raised their hands, and so they went as a group of 6. The plan was they'd be going to the school's most dark and secluded place, which was the computer lab. The computer lab is located behind the school hall. It was also smack dab in the middle between 2 science lab rooms. So you have a science lab on the left and a science lab on the right. And in the middle, you have this very narrow and dark corridor that leads to the computer lab. You walk straight, you turn right, there's a door towards the lab. Of course, students have no access to the rooms around that area, but just by being there, you can already get the chills. What's more, since the sky was dark and a thunderstorm was happening, It was a perfect recipe for a good fright. The first group went up, and about 15 minutes passed before they came down. Some of us asked, "Hey, how? You got see any ghosts?" "Aiya, no leh, nothing to be afraid of." The guy that suggested a plan began to urge the next group to go up. However, there were only 3 of us, and I pointed it out to him. "Hey, you said not to go in odd numbers, right? But there's only 3 of us. So, how?" He then gave a grim look and said, Hey, why not we reuse the same members that went up just now?" And then he brightened up. So in the end, we had an additional 3 members that filled our ranks. The 6 of us then proceeded to the computer lab. When we arrived, we greeted with silence and darkness. It was empty. It was expected since no students roamed that area. Classes have already ended for the upper primary students, and the lower primary students were having lessons in their classes. The only sound that we could hear were the faint chatters that were from the cafeteria below us. The so-called leader of the group told us to break off and tried to provoke the ghosts. So some of us began hurling insults, others were making ape noises. So you can probably imagine the scene. A group of guys outside the computer lab. No one is there. All of them just, "Hey, come out lah, come out. Hey, we're not afraid of you. Come, ghost, ghost." And then some of them making ape noises. And so this chaos ensued, and some began to go into the narrow corridor leading to the lab. Me? I just stood there, silent. I was just an observer. I mean, I was scared, but I was feeling excited to participate in this activity. It was like those moments where you get to bond with your bros even after the dumb things we did. But a few minutes passed and nothing happened. So we gathered round and lamented at our disappointment. The leader then suggested, "Oi, why not all of us look towards the sky and we will see who is brave among all of us. Those who look away from the lightning flashes, you're out." Everyone was immediately on board with that idea. Everyone except for me. I guess I considered that activity to be immature and foolish, so I decided not to participate in it. You know, the irony was that I also considered the ghost hunting to be foolish and immature, but I participated in it anyway. I wonder what I was thinking that time. The others went over to the parapet walls and everyone looked towards the sky. For once, the chaos that we caused just now by hurling insults and ape noises transitioned to silence as the boys were looking towards the sky. I welcomed this change of pace since I preferred the quiet. I looked behind, taking one good look at the area outside the computer lab. There were 2 large rectangular tables with benches. I assumed they were for students to study after school, but who would study at such a place? As all of us waited for the inevitable flash of lightning, I continued to stand there, my back facing against the boys, staring blankly at the benches and tables. When the lightning flashed, it was amazing. It was so bright. The area outside the computer lab was well lit. So bright that from my peripheral vision, I saw a figure. The lightning flashed for a mere second, but it was enough for me to see what it was. I saw a lady standing very close to me. Her hair was covering her face and she wore a white dress. It was tattered and the bottom end of her dress were dirty. It was as if the dress was dragged on soil or something. I screamed so loud, the others were startled and joined in on screaming too. I began to run away first, breaking off from the group. The boys saw me cowering away from the area and followed suit. The footsteps behind me grew louder and louder, until some of the boys, with greater speed than me, overtook me, or some just ran beside me. We arrived at the basketball court, but most of the boys that were waiting already shifted our backs to the school's library. Only one of them stayed behind to wait our return to inform us of the change in venue. So we relocated to the library, and along the way, we chatted on our experience. I was silent throughout. I knew these guys never saw it, only I did. When we arrived at the library, I only told the story to one of the boys. He didn't dismiss my story, but instead said, "Man, you must be really lucky or unlucky to be targeted amongst the six of us." That day, I learned my lesson. If the plan was dumb, dangerous, or foolish, give it a pass. It doesn't matter if you're in a group of even numbers or odd numbers. If the ghosts want to show themselves to you, they will. Yes. Okay, that makes sense, and I think it's true because if the ghosts want to show themselves to you, they will on its own time. It's not like you're in a group of six, and then suddenly the ghost be like, "Oh man, these guys are in even numbers. Well, I guess I'm powerless. Next time, I guess." No, 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 no such thing. Okay. I mean, let's replace the ghosts with something tangible. Let's say like an armed assailant. If there's an armed assailant that wants to rob other people or do something to you, just because you're in a group of even numbers doesn't mean they can't do anything to you. Granted, I mean, if you are in a group of six or eight or 10, you have the advantage of numbers. You can somehow even the odds by a large scale. But in the context of a ghost, I mean, if they want to show themselves to you, they will. If they want to scare you, they can. Okay, it's all up to them. I mean, it makes sense what Michael said. Yeah. Oh, and for those who don't know, um, primary school is similar to elementary school. So when when Michael mentioned upper primary students and lower primary students, basically you have primary one and primary two, which are known as the lowest primary students, and from primary three to primary six, it's upper primary student. So yeah, that's what he meant by lower primary and upper primary. Yeah. Okay. You know what? We actually have come to the end of tonight's program. I hope you enjoy the stories that were shared tonight. Okay. Remember, if you have any horror stories that you want me to read, please do feel free to email me at okay. I'm not sure which platform all of you are listening, but I'm sure I've placed my email address somewhere around here. Anyway, I'll take my leave first. See you next time, and fair winds.